In this section, we will be discussing equipment. While equipment rules are straightforward, it is important that we enforce them properly. The earlier we address equipment issues, the easier of a time we will have in games and throughout the season. If we enforce the rules dealing with equipment during scrimmages and the first few games of the season, hopefully we will see less issues in the middle of the year. We also need to make sure that if we have equipment issues early in the game, we take care of them. If we are not enforcing them properly in the first quarter, then enforcing them late in the game can cause issues with coaches who can complain, rightfully so, that we let it go early and we shouldn't be moving the goalposts late in the game. We also need to make sure that we are addressing it evenly from game to game and crew to crew. If we are all on the same page and enforcing equipment rules all equally, then both players and coaches will know the expectations and hopefully will make sure that they are following the rules properly. Equipment must not be altered from the way it was produced by the manufacturer or used in a way not intended. For example, a knee pad that is cut down to a smaller size would be considered equipment not properly worn. Another example are coach sleeves that are worn on the belt instead of the wrist. Knee pads are consistently an issue that we've been dealing with for years. Knee pads must come down to the knee. If the knee pads are in pants and the pants can't reach the knee, then this must be addressed. Knee pads might slide up during play, so use preventive officiating and tell players to pull down his knee pads. Hopefully after a couple times of this, the player will start to self-correct. Any player not wearing equipment properly is no longer a penalty. The player must be sent to the sideline for one play or until the issue has been corrected. Players cannot be brought back in with a timeout. However, if a halftime or overtime intermission takes place before a play is ran, the player can come back on for the next play. Illegal equipment, which we will discuss later, is a 15-yard unsportsmanlike conduct penalty assessed to the head coach. Head coaches should be asked if his players are legally equipped and wearing their equipment properly during the pregame discussion. Most of the required equipment needed is fairly straightforward. A helmet with a face mask is an obvious one. A mouthpiece is required, and a player may only have one mouthpiece on him while on the field. If a player has a mouthpiece in and one stuck in his helmet, he must be sent off for one play. Jerseys for the home team must be of the same dark color, while jerseys for the away team should be white. If there is an issue where the teams are wearing similar colors, the home team can be required to change to an alternative uniform. Optional equipment is allowed but not required to play. All rib and back protectors must be completely covered by the jersey. Forearm pads must be made of soft material and not rigid. Gloves should have the SFIA or NOCSAE logo on them in order to be legal. Towels have certain requirements to be legal as well. They must be between the sizes of 4 by 12 inches and 18 by 36 inches. I don't recommend that we get out a tape measure to check the size, but a player with a beach towel hanging around their waist might need to be addressed. Towels may also be different colors among the players. However, they cannot be brown or yellow to ensure that there is no confusion. Knee braces, unaltered from the manufacturer, are legal and do not require any other padding. Sweatbands must be below the elbow and not around the bicep. Again, asking the player to pull down a sweatband if you notice it's too high is a great way to use preventive officiating. However, a player who intentionally pulls a sweatband above his elbow should be sent to the sideline. Tape, bandages, or support wrap that protect or cover an existing injury are legal. Keep in mind, eye shields must also be completely free of any tint. However, sunglasses are perfectly legal. Dangerous, confusing, or inappropriate equipment is at the discretion of the crew. If there is any question, crew should discuss the problem and address it. If you run into this problem, it would be a good idea to report it to your district coordinator. Jewelry is also illegal. The exceptions are for religious or medical alert jewelry. These should be taped down to the body, and a medical alert indicator can be visible. Again, these are examples of illegal equipment and should come with an unsportsmanlike conduct penalty against the head coach. Casts and braces are common in football. Any knee or ankle braces, unaltered from the manufacturer, are legal and do not need to be covered. However, hard and unyielding casts, braces, or guards on the wrist, forearm, elbow, or upper arm must be covered with a half-inch thick foam padding. A doctor's note is not required to play with these as long as the rules are followed. However, be alert to a player who may use a cast as a weapon during play. Land phones and headsets are legal and can be used by players and coaches on the sideline. However, they cannot be used in the field of play or during conferences between the 9-yard marks. In 2025, the rules have changed on electronic equipment used to communicate with players on the field. Still images can be used to relay play calls to the players. However, video still can't be shown to players on the field. It can be used on the sidelines. Officials cannot use TV or replay equipment to make decisions in the game. Again, if we address equipment issues early, hopefully we will avoid having to deal with them during the game. Umpires should walk through both teams during the pregame and look at all players to ensure that they are fully equipped. While sometimes players may not warm up in full gear, it could still be a good time to remind a player who has their knee pads above their knees to make sure that they're covered once the game starts. During the game, it is the responsibility of the whole crew to enforce the rules of equipment. Using common sense and preventive officiating when possible is the best solution. This will keep us from having games constantly interrupted because of equipment problems. Remember, these games are not about us showing we know the rules. A quick reminder to a player or coach will go a long way and keep the focus on the game itself. Balls should be presented in the pregame by the home coach and the visiting coach if he uses his own balls. An NFHS logo is required for all varsity and JV games. Check to be sure they are properly inflated. We don't need to use a pressure gauge for all balls, but a ball that seems to be under or overinflated should be checked to ensure that it meets the requirements of 12.5 to 13.5 psi. Illegal equipment used in the game should result in an unsportsmanlike conduct penalty against the head coach and should report it after the game. Remember, if we enforce these rules early and the same throughout each week in each crew, we should avoid problems later in both games and the season as a whole.